Trade Union Federation Cosatu is today demonstrating across parts of the country. This is to mark World Day for Decent Work. In Gauteng, workers are expected to hand over a memorandum of demands to entities including Eskom, Massmart and government departments. We've got our senior reporter Aviwe Mtila, who's covering that story and joins us now for the very latest. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon, Aviwe Mtila, and I'm sure you've engaged the different members of the Federation and some of the demands that they're looking to present to these companies as they hand over that memorandum. What are some of the poignant ones that you have picked up on?
Good afternoon, colleague. And the two entities that this march is going to, it's a Joburg march, I understand, of the Cosatu Decent Works, celebrating international decent work. But they have two places that they're targeting. One is Eskom. Of course, we know the economic woes that comes with the constant on and off that comes with load shedding. The other is game as well. But I want to bring in the former president of Cosatu, Dlamini, just on the front of the march. Mtila, thank you for joining us at eNCA. We're talking about the International Day of Decent Work. Is the African National Congress government, which of course is part of the tripartite alliance with Cosatu, still a vanguard of workers in your view?
Yes, it is our view that workers are very critical in this country and the world over. And if the ANC has to look into that, it will empower those workers. It is critical.
And how are we in the most unequal society in the world having federations such as Cosatu as a vanguard of workers? Surely that shouldn't be the case.
It will always be the case. As long as there are oppressions on the workers and there is a capitalist on the other side, the importance of managing that situation and defeating those ends that want to defeat the workers and the working class in general.
And the tripartite alliance itself seems to be in a critical point, given that we saw at Congress the Cosatu didn't want to receive the chair of the ANC, Kwete Mandashe. What is this? What's the signal of all of this? What do you make of it?
It's an indication that things are not okay for the workers in general. So the African National Congress thinks hard about that situation, and we'll have to work together as an alliance to respond to those issues that workers were raising at the Cosatu Congress.
And when it comes to the SAPC wanting to go the next election alone, Cosatu still undecided on its stance. What would you suggest happens going forward?
Well, I think that question could be best answered by Cosatu and the SACP, as the ANC would want to see a united alliance going forward. Even by 2024, a united alliance will be very critical.
And then just maybe my parting question on the minimum wage, which is 23 Rand 19 cents per hour for the lowest worker on the ground. Is it enough, you think?
Well, it is not enough. And I was happy when the workers at the Congress of Cosatu were beginning to talk about the living wage, because the minimum wage, yes, is important, but a living wage will be very critical for the workers in South Africa.
Sorry, my final question. Kwete Mandashe seemed to suggest that we have electricity. The load shedding shouldn't be a problem at this stage. What's your thoughts on this around Eskom and the continuous load shedding, given that we're headed to Eskom now?
Look, unfortunately, this issue of load shedding has opened a range of different debates in the country, and indeed the ANC must solve this problem, of course, with Eskom and society. Whether it will be independent power producers or Eskom alone, I doubt whether alone Eskom can solve it, but it is important that the electricity issue in South Africa is resolved.
Okay, thank you very much. Dlamini, the former president of Cosatu, of course, as it heads to Eskom, also targeting game, which they say that workers there aren't necessarily treated fairly, colleague. It is, of course, part of the International Decent Workers Day, where we're seeing at least these hundreds now march through the streets as part of a wider march by Cosatu nationally that looks at affecting decent work and decent working conditions for the majority of workers.
That's absolutely correct. Let's move over to that same march now in KZN, where we've got Nqobile Madlala following Cosatu members there who are raising the same issues, but focusing here on the privatization of Transnet at ports, as well as the outsourcing that happens at PRASA, and of course retrenchments at SAPREF. Nqobile, you've been engaging with the members of the Federation Union today, and of course they've raised many issues around decent work, but also decent pay, and them understanding that the cost of living in South Africa is unattainable at the moment, and the employer should be meeting workers halfway.
Well, yes, that is right, Rofiwa. I mean, that's what we heard from Zingis. We're speaking about the fact that workers need to be acknowledged when it comes to money as well, that they need decent work, but they also need decent money, decent pay, because we have seen what has happened in the country, especially after COVID. A lot of people have lost their jobs, whilst at the same time the cost of living has just gone up higher. So I'm going to bring in some of our guests to sort of speak to us about those issues. Baba, you are joining the march today, but tell me what you're hoping we'll get out of it.
All that we are expecting out of this thing is that those who are in authorities, those who are in power, they need to do things the right way. Because right now, if you can go to South Coast Road, if you can go to Bayhead Road, you can hardly make it to the harbour. And it's because Transnet has been derailed, so to speak. And our obligation as Transnet is to take all goods from port to the entire inland. And right now, if you can check, it's only road trucks that are doing that. And it's no wonder why that is the case. It's because really trains are not moving. And the reality is that when we do so at the expense of the entire republic. And the reality is that it's not only about the current generation which is suffering, because remember here, this parastatal used to be an employer of choice, but right now that is not the case, and it's because really the government or whatever that they are doing, and from where workers are, even the disaster that happened, it means they were happy that it happened, because as a result of that, there's nothing material that has been done to make sure that things are different from now onwards. And the reality is that, like I'm saying, we have got a lot of clients that we are unable to serve. It is not by default that we are, because ideally we are supposed to be servicing those clients. Everybody is complaining about the inability of Transnet to do these things, and we believe that they are being derailed.
But Baba, if you can just tell me a bit about your life, how are you affected when these things happen?
The reality is that life has been extremely horrible. We are being suffocated. I'm sure you're aware that even right now, management and labor, they are still deadlocking on salaries.
Do you fear that you will lose your job?
We are not supposed to be losing our jobs, because there is a job for us. Like I'm saying, if you can go to M7 right now, you will see that you won't be able to go through, because the trucks are all over there. The job that used to be done because a train, when you cancel one train, it means you need a lot of trucks to do the job that is supposed to be done by one particular train. And when you do so, you are inconveniencing the whole republic, and that is not supposed to be the case. So
you want them to essentially make sure that you are able to do the job that you are hired to do, if I'm correct. I also want to bring you in, sir. I think what Sir is complaining about is the fact that you want the opportunity to be able to do your work, and this is what you're hoping we'll get out of this. Could you perhaps explain your situation to us? How are you affected as a worker?
As a worker, I'm also affected, and the entire workers in PRASA. We are affected by the situation, by the prevailing circumstances. There are a lot of things that are happening the infrastructure where trains are supposed to be running has deteriorated extremely, and we are affected. There are a lot of other issues that are affecting us as workers. So we felt it is important that we demonstrate so that we get attention as workers. These issues need to be resolved speedily, because the more they take long, we get more frustrated. There are issues of increments that have not been paid. There are issues of overtime that has been worked. The employer cannot pay that. So there are a lot of issues that keep on piling up until we came to this day where we felt no. It is important that we demonstrate some kind of a demonstration so that the senior authorities that are deployed there can see our frustration as workers. I think that is the main objective of this process, so that.
Do you feel financially affected at this point?
Yes, of course. We are financially affected, extremely. We are financially affected, and the outcomes of that will be, there will be poor performance, there will be despondency in the workplace if workers are financially distressed. So we have been making calls to the employer to try some means in terms of financial wellness or whatever that they must show us that they are really with us. So we've been crying alone up until we felt no, let's bring along Cosatu, because Cosatu is the federation, so let's bring along Cosatu so that we make this thing big and our cries to reach the ears of the authority.
And I know some of the people that are joining you today are also going to be soon going to pension. Do you know why they're deciding to hold hands with you guys at this point and work with you?
Yeah, the reasons are obvious, as we have mentioned, with the material conditions are dire and detrimental in nature, and some of the employees, they cannot stand that test of time, you see, so things are messed up. That's what we can say. Hence we are demonstrating like this. It means there is something wrong, really. And we want the authority to come to the party, listen to us, and address this thing amicably so. Because I can tell you something. Even though they are trying to bring back the train service, but it's not working. The current service that is running is also affecting the commuters as well, you see.
But why is it affecting the commuters?
Because of the inefficiencies in the operation. There's a lot, the trains are being delayed, the signaling system is dilapidated. There's a lot of infrastructure issues, and the times that we are running very few trains. In other corridors are not even open till today.
So what is your solution?
Sorry?
What is your solution to all of these problems?
The solution is that we know, that is why we are saying this privatization and this outsourcing is not bearing any fruit in terms of reviving our infrastructure and reviving the normal services, the normal work that one is supposed to perform. So we have solutions as workers. But the authorities, they are making decisions on their own, they are not involving us. Hence, we are the ones who are directly in the cold face of the operations. We are directly affected. So that is the point of contention.
Thank you very much. Those are some of the workers that are highlighting issues, Rafiwa. You can hear they're talking about the dilapidated infrastructure being one of the major issues that affects them, not only in terms of doing the work, but also financially. They're talking about the fact that there's less trains, which means there's less work. And also they're saying that this cannot stand the time. And so they're saying that they want to see change. But now you'll see that they've arrived here at Walmart. We know that they're going to be delivering the memorandum. These are some of the areas that they want to highlight, that there be decent work and also that the workers can be seen and can be heard. We do know that they are going to still be going to the harbour. This is the first stop, Rafiwa, but they are saying that major issues, infrastructure is dilapidated. They want officials to come on board and speak to them, speak to the workers. They're the ones that know the problem. And again, just to echo those words from Zingiswalos, who was speaking to us, that they want workers to be involved and they want officials to understand what are the workers' plights and how they can solve those problems.
Yes, thank you very much for that update, Nqobile Madlala. And just to highlight there, Massmart, the owners of game stores across the country, have been making announcements since late last year that they will be shutting down some stores that are just not making it any kind of profit. And of course, that means people's jobs are compromised.